Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from dads hitting rock bottom, daughters watching their parents divorce, or even what is a good wine for couples to have while talking about finances. Here's your host, who once did 25,106 steps in one day. Unbelievable. Way to go. Here he is, Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney, and for the record, let me take a look. I did not have a good day. Steps-wise, was only 4,476. I thought I'd have at least 5,000, but it's not, the app's not, what do you call it? The thing where it does the thing. Anyway. Hey, on this episode, we have a special guest. Well, they're all special guests. Jeff Tippett is on the show. He is going to tell us about how I'm gonna go on a limb, say he almost risked his life bringing his daughter back to the United States, and we're gonna talk about that. All right, coming to you live, recording this live in beautiful Colorado Springs, down here for work. And beautiful hotel room. I love going in and asking. If you've never read the book, The Last Lecture by Dr. Randy Pouch, and I always believe I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Anyway, in the book, he talks about life lessons, and one of the biggest life lessons I'm going to pass on to you is just ask. Ask for things. And I asked to see if they had an upgrade in the hotel. And I'm in a suite. Well, it's not really a suite. It's a, a studio suite. So it's bigger than a regular room. So I'm very happy to be here. What else is going on? Exercising is going well. I took today off. I'm recording this on Wednesday. And I'm actually watching the Blackhawks losing right now, 3-2, going into the third period. Took this morning off from working out. Was feeling a little stiff, but it's been going well. Both Monday when I got here in Colorado Springs, I went right to the gym after work, and then Tuesday, yesterday morning, got up early, went right to the gym. Been doing this. I have this other app. I think it's also by Zen Labs, Zenlabs, Zen Labs. And it's 100 push-ups. So the goal is to be able to eventually do 100 push-ups at one time. And I've been working on that, trying to build up the body. Tired of being a fat ass. Whew. What's going on? So we have Jeff Tippett, Colorado Springs. Got hockey coming up in a couple weeks. Going to have Connor's going to be at a tournament. Becca. Report on Becca. We talked about how the recording of the last show, she was getting ready for surgery. She had successful surgery working on her ACL, I believe. It was her ACL. And I guess she overdid it the other day, and so she's a little tired. But it's a bummer because I guess and I'm no doctor, so I'm not going to play one on TV, but I guess the original doctor told her that she should be able to hopefully play volleyball. So in high school for her, it's volleyball pretty much at the start of school year, and then they go into basketball. And so she was hoping to play volleyball and then basketball, but the physical therapist said, no, probably you're going to be done for 12 months. So that would even wipe out her basketball year as a senior. So we are hoping for the best. And she's a tough kid. She's, tough teenager. So we don't want her to be sitting out because she loves playing volleyball and loves playing basketball. So if you can send her some happy thoughts, that'd be greatly appreciated. And this stupid chair I'm sitting in keeps dropping down. It's so funny. Anyway, let's get into the show. Let's talk about Jeff Tippett. So Jeff Tippett, I don't know if I mentioned this, he is a professional speaker, and he is known as Mr. Persuasion. Jeff wrote the book on persuasive communication. He speaks to international audiences through his keynote and seminar. Jeff helps attendees increase their effectiveness, gives them powerful tools to reach their goals, and empowers attendees to positively impact and grow their organizations or businesses. You can find Jeff at his website, jefftippett.com. That's JEFFTIPPETT.com. Like I said, he's got a great story about adoption, about tenacity, a lot of tenacity, patience, and I don't know if you could, after listening to Jeff's story, could you do what Jeff had to do to adopt his daughter? So anyway, Jeff Tippett, again, jefftippett.com. Check him out. Wonderful guy. Had a great time talking with him. And that's it. That's all I got for you. I am going to watch, as I edit this podcast, and watch the rest of the Blackhawks. Like I said, are losing right now going into the third period 3-2. But Jonathan Toews, or as some people call him, Toes, just scored a shorthanded goal. So hopefully the Blackhawks are going to come back and win. Oh, before I forget, I did text the boy, a.k.a. Connor, and said I'm going to jump on like Tampa Bay's bandwagon, or even the Winnipeg Jets bandwagon, because I don't think the Hawks are going to make it to the playoffs. All right, there you go. All right, as my good friend Terry Crews, well, one day he'll be my good friend. Let's try that again. As Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Thanks for listening. I hope you have an enjoyable time listening to this podcast with Jeff Tippett. Jeff, first of all, I am going to call BS on you, but because your superpower is persuasion, when you sent out your message to me on LinkedIn, and you said when you went on LinkedIn to find podcasters, and you said I was a podcast influencer, I'm BS on you. You are really good at persuasion, because I'm sitting reading that going, podcast influencer. Yeah, that's me. Sure. But I'm excited to have you on here, Jeff. It didn't matter if you tried to butter me up or not. I am just super happy to have you on here. And your superpower really is persuasion. So, Jeff, thank you for coming on Blending the Family, the podcast.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to hang out and talk with you just a little bit. We'll blame the BS on LinkedIn's algorithms. How about if we do that, and then we'll put it on LinkedIn. But I do appreciate you responding to my request and taking a few minutes to chat today. And I'm quite sure that we can bring some value to your listeners as we talk about this.
Well, I'm going to say I hope you bring some value to me too, because one of the things that as a parent, or let me take a step back, as somebody who's in the world of social media, training, what have you, I need help with persuasion. So how did you discover, Jeff, that your superpower was persuading people?
Yeah, it came through a very emotional story of adopting a baby from the country of Haiti. I wish I could say that it had always been a lifelong dream of mine to adopt a baby. I mean, that just sounds fantastic, but it wasn't. I had 2 children at home already, and it was a situation where my father went to Haiti to do some humanitarian relief, and while there, he developed a friendship with a translator who happened to be a 9th grader who was in an English-speaking Christian school.
Hold on. And your dad's translator was in 9th grade?
9th grader, wow. Absolutely.
Can you take us contextually? What year are we talking, Jeff?
So this would have been 2003.
Okay. So your dad's there doing some mission work, hanging out with a 9th grader, and
he learns her story. And her story was this. She ended up getting pregnant, and her Christian school gave her an option. They said, you can either get rid of your baby or you can drop out of school. I don't even know how you like wrap your head around that, nor make the gut-wrenching decision to figure out what are you going to do here with your life. But through a process, she finally came to terms that the best thing for her as an individual would be to complete her high school diploma. There are not a lot of Haitians that have a diploma, and she felt like this could be extremely important for her. She also knew that she did not have the resources to take care of this baby. So while she was still caring for the baby, she made a decision that she wanted to find a new home for her baby, and told my dad that portion of it. And I don't know what happened, but I just looked at this picture, and the mom was holding her. She was naked as she was holding her, no clothes whatsoever. The mom was holding her, and I just fell in love with this picture. And I knew at that moment that I was supposed to adopt this baby and bring her here to the US and become her father. What I didn't know, what was going on in Haiti at the time. President Aristide was being run out of office. And so you had all of his supporters and you had his detractors fighting each other. There were riots that were going on there. It was the first time in my life I'd had a gun pointed at my head. It was the first time in my life to have a machete held at my neck. And imagine what you would do having to jump in the back of a pickup truck to flee the city because riots are breaking out and you're trying to save yourself.
And so this was this in the process of adopting your daughter?
Yeah, so I ended up going over. Again, I didn't really pay much attention to what's happening in Haiti. I flew over within the first 30 days, and that's when I got my first taste of what was really going on in Haiti. What I found was that the people were warm, they were beautiful, they were amazing, they were so positive, they were so carefree. I learned that the landscape is just beautiful with the beaches and the mountains, but there was a lot of corruption, and the country was falling apart when I got there. And again, I just didn't know what I was entering into. I was not prepared for what happened during that 6.5-month venture.
So I want to take a step back of your dad must have had a really profound effect on you. For number one, him, going to Haiti, doing, mission work. I guess what I want to hear from you, Jeff, is how do I even phrase this? It's an amazing story, Jeff. What was it that resonated with you to say to yourself, Jeff, that your dad is letting you know about this young girl who's pregnant, and how do you just deep down inside of you, because you must have a powerful connection with your dad, and your dad letting you know about this situation?
So that's what's even more interesting about the story. My dad didn't tell me the story as a matter of trying to influence me or to impact me on the decision. He had photos, like in the old school photos where like they put them in these little albums and you flip through. And it was more of just like this carousel of flipping through, telling the story. Oh, here's my translator. Her name is Elda. Here's a picture of her holding her baby. Oh, by the way, here's what's happening in her life. And then ready to flip the next picture. And something just sparked inside of me at that moment. I don't know if we want to say the universe brought it to me or what exactly was happening at that moment, but something happened. And I left that dinner with my dad when he was showing me the pictures totally changed and heading in a whole different direction than I walked in just 60 minutes earlier.
What was that conversation like with your family of saying, I need to go to Haiti, I need to bring this girl back?
So, with my wife at the time, she was 100% on board. She had concerns, of course. We had a baby at the house. We had a 3-year-old at the house. Like there's all this happening. I think that she felt something inside as well. Something resonated with her as well. With some extended family members, there were lots of questions that even brought up questions in myself as well about bringing a person of a different ethnicity into the family. And then I even started asking myself questions of like, Jeff, what are you doing here? Like, why would you bring this baby here? Do you have a savior complex? I mean, what is your motivation? What's happening inside of you? And I had to take time here just to continue to check myself as to why am I doing this? What is driving this decision? And part of it for me then was to say, okay, I feel like I'm supposed to take the next steps. So I don't have a clear path to the completion of the adoption. This was all brand new to me. But part of the process then was to say, okay, I'll at least take the next step. And if things continue to align, then I'll know that I'm to move forward. And in the first part of this, a whole bunch of stuff aligned. And then all of a sudden, with one single email, the whole adoption process began to crumble and fall apart.
Well, reading your story, Jeff, you were there for, was it a month?
So there was times I was there for a month. I went over probably a half dozen times within the 6.5-month window. Like,
Okay.
and when it was going on, it felt like forever. That 6.5 months, like it felt like it was never going to end. Especially since it required me to be consumed by this constantly to make this happen. But a traditional birth is 9.5 months. So I guess in the bigger picture of an international adoption during a time when the country was falling apart, there was civil unrest, to complete it in 6.5 months, and to come out with just minimal damage was pretty easy.
So one of the things you had to do every day was go to, I assume it was like an adoption office, to get permission.
So that's where the whole thing began to crumble for me. At this point, I was about 3 months into it. My heart was there. We were moving like it, and I'd been over a couple of times. Things were really happening for me. So what ended up happening was my Haitian attorney sent me an email, and he said, Jeff, the office that you need to sign this next document is not opening up, exactly like what you just mentioned. So at best, you need to consider your adoption on hold. But at worst, you might kind of need to accept the fact that this may not move forward, because we don't know when the government will open, if the government will open, what the structure will be, what the new government will look like. We don't know how long all this process is going to take. So yeah, devastated. Went to bed pretty defeated there. I got up the next morning and made a decision that what I was going to do is what you just identified. I flew over with the intent of, with the translator, every morning I'm getting up and walking to this office. My attorney had this like office house combo, and so I stayed with him, and I would walk down every day with the translator, pretty excited in the mornings. The sun comes up, you're pretty hopeful, but I'd go back every single day defeated. What I was hoping was that someone would just happen to pop in for some reason, that they would just, some official in that office would happen to come in. For 2.5 weeks, no one showed up, until finally someone did end up coming to the office and came in. I started telling him my story. Yeah, you can imagine. Yeah, at this point, I have all these emotions inside of me. I've already fallen in love with this girl. I spent time with her. I spent time with her family. I'm afraid. I'm concerned. I think I'm losing out on what's going on here. I think I might never adopt her. And also, 2 weeks or so there, being there with very few people that speak English, and not having someone to communicate a lot of these words. I'm a professional speaker. I talk for a living. So not having that exchange was tough as well. But man, I got there with the government official, and through my interpreter, I just started exploding with language, saying things like, I need you to sign this document. This is my adoption. I need you to get this completed. If you don't sign this, my adoption can't move forward. And just continuing on this whole tirade. It felt pretty good, inside, like, to get all this stuff out. But it wasn't received very well. And he looked at me and said, no. And he wasn't going to do it. Well, I knew I had to turn this thing around, and I only had seconds to turn this around and figure out what to do. So I drew on the limited amount of Haitian culture that I did know. And that was that Haitians love their children. They value family, and babies are like jewels to Haitians. I mean, they like the first year of their life, most babies are carried. I mean, they're just so close to the family. The connection is amazing there. So I turned my conversation around, and I stopped talking about me and what I wanted. And I turned it to what I assumed would speak to him. And I said, look, I know as Haitians, you guys value your kids. I know that a baby like this baby is a jewel to you guys. She doesn't have a home. She doesn't have financial resources. She doesn't have a promise of an education. She doesn't have a family around her now to love her, because they had put her in this orphanage. She doesn't have anyone around to take care of her. I know that you value your children. I'll be that conduit. I'll make that happen if you'll sign. Within 10 minutes, the document was signed. I was out the door. And walking back is really when this started to click with me of, what just happened? Like, how did I go from no to yes? And what changed here? And of course, up front, it was all about me. Really, what I tried to do up front was what we call manipulation.
Right.
And I tried to use manipulation to get him to do what I wanted him to do. It didn't work. Persuasion did work, which was the beginning of the understanding, combining with my background in communications, of understanding how do we persuade and how do we persuade without manipulating. And a big part of this process for me is helping people to understand the difference between manipulation and persuasion. And when they do, light bulbs go off.
I want to try and paint a picture of you leaving your hotel every day and going to that office. What was there like a park bench? Was there any kind of waiting room? What was it?
I was outside.
Just standing around?
Standing around, sitting under trees, like wherever I could find a squat there, and just like seeing people go by. It was all, the building was literally locked. Like there was no way in. No one was working in this office.
Due to the unrest of what Haiti was going through at that time.
Exactly. The entire government shut down. All the offices were closed. And this was the second time that Aristide had gone through this, so people didn't know what to expect. They didn't know if he was going to make it. They didn't know if he was going to be run out. They didn't know if a new president was going to come in. The students, part of like having to leave the city and have to go to the capital city to get a lot of paperwork done, but the students at the university were rioting, and they would take tires and they would ignite them and they would hurl burning tires out. They would come out with knives, with guns. I mean, it was scary for someone who's not used to that type of environment, but they were passionate about wanting him out.
I'm just trying to picture you just sitting there under a tree, being all calm, and all these riots are happening around you, and you're just going, I just want to bring this baby back to the United States. That's all I want to do. But there's a little unrest going on. I mean, how did you stay mentally motivated during all that time, Jeff?
Well, I had to go back to that original feeling, the original call that I felt to adopt the baby. And there was love. There was a bond that already happened. Being there with her within the first 30 days and holding her and taking her clothes and providing money for her family to help buy food for her and take care of her. The connection was already there. So for me, it wasn't about like bringing someone else to the U.S. At that point, it was, how do I get my daughter from Haiti to the U.S.? So that connection and the bond had already happened there. And it wasn't just trying to get someone, unknown person, out of a bad situation. This was my daughter.
What was your, how did you build your relationship with the mom?
The mom was and is a wonderful person. Very sweet person. We had the first trip over, we just sat and we talked, and I listened to her story to understand that what happened, what she's looking for, what her goals are, what she sees for her life, and even just making sure, like multiple times, are you sure you want to go this path? Because part of Haitian law requires that the kids be removed. That the mom literally signs this thing called a certificate of abandonment, and the mom has to abandon the baby, and the baby has to be placed in what's called a creche, which is like a halfway house orphanage. So the baby had to say that the mom had to 100% let go of all control and all contact. And at that moment, she would never see her baby again. So we had to have all these conversations about making sure that she was okay. This is what she really wanted in this.
Wow. That's just heartbreaking that the government is saying, once you sign this document, you'll never have the opportunity to see your child again.
It was over. She had to hand the baby off to this creche. I took up payments and began paying for her to stay there and to be in the creche. And at one point, and even at that, like the creche didn't take good care of her. One of the trips I went over to see her, and she was so sick. She had lost so much weight. I didn't even recognize her because she had changed so much in just a few weeks. So I pulled her out of the creche, which technically I could have gotten a lot of trouble for doing that, but I had to make a decision of what I needed to do to save her life. So I pulled her out. We kept her staying at my attorney's house, and I hired a nanny, a day nanny and a night nanny, to take care of her. So two people took care of her round the clock to make that she was sure that she was fed and that she was taken care of. I provided money so they could get her to doctors to take care of her as well during that period of time.
Wow. So 6.5 months later, you're standing in Miami International Airport, and it's all over.
Well, the last little hitch, last little bump before I was able to get to Miami was I got the word from my attorney that it was all completed, and I flew over to go get her, only to be denied a visa for her to come back. She had been flagged by the Haitian government and the U.S. government for a DNA test with her and her biological mother to prove that this was the mother that had abandoned this child. Well, she was still sick at that point. It was going to take about 8 to 10 weeks for that type of test to go through. The adoption was completed in Haiti. Like, she was mine. I'm holding her. Like, I'm there trying to get this visa for her so she can leave. And they tell me no, that she needs a DNA test first before the U.S. government will allow her to leave the Haitian government.
I'm no doctor and never played one on TV or on YouTube, but isn't that just a simple blood test?
It is, but the mother was like 8 hours away from where this is, and like travel, she would have to take a bus. She really didn't have the fare to try to take air to get there. Then there's the process of the DNA being taken care of in Haiti as well. So the whole thing they were estimating could be about 8 weeks with travel and everything.
Wow. And where was your mind then?
Total surprise. Like, I was in shock. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, she's mine. Like, I'm holding her. Like, I can't just like go home. Do I stay here? Like, what happens to my life now this has happened? I called back to the States, and we worked with one of the people that was my senator at the time, and I have a lot of political connections, and we were able to work out with them, with the senator's office. They called over. I called back to the U.S. Embassy. A couple hours later, they promised me be here the first thing tomorrow morning. There's a couple of documents they wanted. We'll get you processed, and you'll be out the door. And I got processed. I got out the door. I went straight to the airport. Our taxi took me straight to the airport without even an airline ticket to get out at that point, and just was hoping to catch a flight and get out of there.
Wow. That's just an amazing journey, Jeff.
It was. Again, like, when I'm in the middle of it, it was so hard. It felt so difficult. But then to pick up where you are at the airport, I landed at the airport, go through the processing. She's screaming, so the people were really kind. They let me jump ahead of line. They wanted her to get off through. We're tired of hearing all that little baby screaming so much. So I got to jump to the front of the line, got processed, got there, sitting at the terminal there in Miami, Florida. And I looked down at her, and I was pretty excited. I felt accomplished, almost a little bit reaching around, patting myself on the back, did it. 6.5 months, you made this happen. Great job. And, about the same amount of time it took those thoughts to come into my head, those thoughts just went out the window. And I began to look at her and just wonder what she's going to be and what her life would be like. Would she be a doctor and heal people? Would she become a humanitarian and relieve suffering? Would she become a teacher and impact hundreds of students that then could impact thousands of lives? And while I didn't have the answer, of course, to any of those questions, what I did know at that moment was this wasn't something that was over. This adoption was kind of like, you've probably been out to a lake or pond and picked up a pebble and tossed in. We know that little plump sound when it goes in. The adoption was like that. Like, I did it. Here's this moment. But what happens after that, as you know, if you look up from the plump, you start to see the ripples of the water going out. And what I knew at that moment was it wasn't over. This was just the beginning, and that her life would touch so many lives that I will never meet in my lifetime, and that she will impact so many other people in her life, all because I was willing to follow this calling, to understand what persuasion is about, to walk away from manipulation and learn how to move. This created a whole new future for people that I will never even know.
So you bring up a great point, and that is, as parents, we want our kids to do, the right thing and make the right decisions. As a professional persuader, Jeff, what advice can you give parents out there listening or watching and saying, how can we, and not manipulate, but how can we help our kids make those right decisions. So again, to use your story, what have you been able to do to help your daughter, or actually all three of your kids? Three, right?
Yep, exactly. Well, let's start with this and a few ideas, but let's start with a little foundation, and that is making sure we understand the difference in manipulation and persuasion. So manipulation means this: it means to control or to influence a person or a situation, to do it cleverly, to do it unfairly. So like persuasion, we are trying to move a person to a different place, but we're doing it out of our own best interest. We're doing this because of what we want for ourselves and what we think is best. Now, let's contrast that with persuasion. Persuasion means to cause someone to do something through reasoning or argument. And the word argument here isn't what we do around our Christmas and Thanksgiving tables when we talk about politics and religion and we bang this whole thing out. It really is this meeting of the minds of two people sharing their values of what's important to them. And then after a period of time and after providing sound reasoning, then sustained effort, the other person comes to the place where we are. And I look for two magical words if I'm talking to my kids, if I'm working with clients, getting a contract signed, to understand if I'm manipulated or I'm persuaded. And those two words are, that's right. So when a client looks at me and says, yeah, Jeff, that's right. Your company can bring the solution that we need to the table. Or a meeting planner says, Jeff, that's right. You are the person that we need on stage to fix this problem. Or my kids are like, hey, yeah, Dad, that's right. That makes a lot of sense to me. I get it. I understand this. But what's happening in this process is this isn't just about us putting our will on others. It is about us understanding the direction that others have as well. We're working through a lot of this with my kids in careers right now. And I may have preconceived ideas of what I think is important for my kids, but it's been very interesting for me to allow my kids to develop what's inside of them and their true self and who they are to be. For example, my oldest daughter has always loved taking care of little kids. That has just been something that she's loved to do. In high school, she ended up landing a job in early childhood development, and now she is studying early childhood development and working as well. I probably wouldn't have picked that path, but what was happened here is I've been able to help guide her as to what it takes to get where she wants to go. My daughter that I adopted from Haiti, she's now 15. She was just accepted into a dual program, which means that she will be in her last 2 years of high school. She'll also be in college at the same time. Of course, she's from African descent, being from Haiti. So here I have a daughter that's a Black girl that loves to code. I mean, like, is that just amazing or what?
That's awesome, Jeff.
Exactly, but making sure, because manipulation doesn't work. Like, we've probably all maybe bought a car and felt manipulated, or maybe we joined a gym and then they try to manipulate us to get all the training sessions to go along with it. We know what it works. Manipulation can work in the short term, right? And salespeople you can manipulate once, twice, make it happen, but you cannot develop and sustain a long-term relationship if you are a manipulator. And one of the things that
I have to stop you right there, Jeff, because I mean, I'm just saying this because having this communication with you right now, Jeff, it sounds like you did something right for all of your kids without manipulating. But at the same time, when you were talking about your daughter coding, all I kept thinking about, and I just wrote this down on my little notepad, is when you were there in Haiti and having that argument with the gentleman who need to sign your papers, and you finally realized, hold on, I got to take a step back. I need to help persuade this gentleman to help me help my young daughter, my infant, my baby, to take her from what will seem a bad situation and take her and bring her to a good situation, because you took the time, Jeff, because you realized this isn't about me, this is about my daughter. Because of all that, look where she's ending up.
Exactly. So he wasn't going to do this. He wasn't going to make the decision. He had no reason to sign the document. He wasn't even working. Like the whole place was shut down. He had no reason. I had to speak to his self-interest. I had to speak to what was important to him. So I had to put my focus on him winning in that moment. What's important to him? What's valuable to him? How do I help him get what it is that he wants? And then from that, I get what I want.
And it goes back again, standing there in Miami airport, looking down your daughter, imagining what she can become, and look what, because of, and I go back, because of your dad flipping through pictures, telling you this young girl's story of pregnant, having a baby, and you finding a calling. All these things happen, and they happen for a reason.
Absolutely. And now we get to see this next level of her life. Like, what is this going to be? I watched her this summer, very driven, very motivated to get her first part-time job. And so she was online filling out applications, and she went through the whole process, set up her own interviews. She made all this happen. I drove her to the interviews. We would talk about interview tactics and skills and things like that driving over. But now she's pursuing all this for herself. And who knows what types of projects she'll be coding, what type of things that she'll be working on in the future. But again, what I know is that because of me willing to change how I address this, change the situation there. She's here now. She's pursuing life, and she's going to touch others.
So, as a parent, how can we help encourage our kids? Help me here, Jeff. Where did her drive come from? Where does that come from? Is it from her siblings? Is it from outside sources? Where is she finding that drive?
First of all, I think part of what's here for her is that she feels extremely safe and that she feels loved in this situation, which was something that was very concerning to me, especially early on. I remember as a young kid, she was sitting on the floor one day playing, and she had these little toys, and she was assembling them into groups. And I looked down at her. Her name is Nina. I said, "Nina, what are you doing here with your toys?" And she said this. She said, "Dad, I'm making families." She said, "They don't match, but they're still families, just like I don't match, and I'm family." So yes, I think that's part of it is like her feeling safe in the environment, her feeling loved, feeling cared for. But I also, in fact, I took a whole chapter in my book to write about this. And Zig Ziglar says it this way. He said, "You'll get everything in life that you want if you just help enough other people get what they want." That works for parents too. What I want in life is for my kids to be strong, to be independent, to go out and be able to chase the things that they want, create the life that they want for themselves. So if that's what it is that I want, then my focus is on helping them get what it is that they want in life. As we went through this process with Nina, even with the situation with college and early childhood, like just listening to her is one of the things I talk about in the book. Like just stop talking, quit telling her what she needs to do in her life, and just listen to what's there. And then the second part of that is to begin to ask questions. Like from listening, ask questions, and also ask clarifying questions, not yes or no questions, but questions that really get to pull more out of her. If you want to take this to a whole nother level, don't just listen. Write down the things that the people say as you're listening to them. Show them that you're really intent and understanding. We went through this, and we still go through this process. Now we're trying to figure out, exactly where in coding does she want to land. So she just went through a weekend program. I think it was called Tech Chicks. It was all females in technology, and she got to choose a path. So now we're testing all this out. And you know what? I don't tell her, "Hey, this is where you have to go." What I'm trying to ask her now is, okay, what did you learn? What did you like? What did you not like? What got you excited? What got you fired up? What like said, "Oh man, I could do this all day for the rest of my life." Talk to me. And then asking to clarify, what about that did you like doing that? And giving her a chance to hear herself talk and to figure some of these things out for herself.
So as a somebody who's in a blended family, how are you able to assimilate your two biological kids with your adopted daughter. How did you make a successful family?
I think the beauty of this was partly because of their age. So, like for my son, my biological son and my adopted daughter are the same age. They're about 2 weeks apart. And my oldest daughter is 3 years apart. Really, all they have known is this life. Like that is all they have known their entire life, is that we are family and this is what our family looks like. And we've never had like discussions about how different the color or any of those type things are. It just hasn't been part of it. And I wonder too, like, okay, can you bring someone in? Can you bring a kid in that's not your biological kid and love this kid just as much as you love a biological kid? And I learned absolutely you can. Like it's all exactly the same. So for us, this is the norm. This is what we know. This is family as we know it. We don't know any other way. They don't know anything different of life without having Nina as part of our family. This is us. This is just who we are.
I'm a big fan of removing labels. So one of the things that I talk about and write about and speak about is when my wife and I first were married, we didn't use the word step. I hated the word. I never understood the word, what step meant. And so I don't know where, somehow, some way, I heard the word bonus, and I love the word bonus. And so when we were first married, because I don't know why, but we have to explain things as divorced families, as the so-called non-traditional families. We have to explain things to other so-called traditional families because a lot of them just don't understand. So we would say, this is my bonus daughter, this is my wife, would be, this is my bonus son. And then it came to the point where even the kids were dropping the label, the bonus, to now the girls would say, this is my annoying brother and this is my sister, the things like that. And so how did you, or were there the labels dropped without even thinking about it in your family, Jeff?
So we didn't use the labels at all, and we still don't. I refer to Nina as my daughter. Now it is fun when some of her friends meet me for the first time, and they walk up, and this white dude comes up, and he's dad, and they'll look, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And then she'll say something like, "I was adopted" or something like that. So we only use it when we have to clarify, when we like mess with people's minds in this whole thing, or when I say, "Hey, my daughter's coming over," and she comes over, I put my arm around her, and there's a little difference in the skin color there. Like, oh, here's the story, here's what happened. So we don't use the labels. We've never used the labels like in the family or just talking, only when people's minds are blown, really.
So what's let's talk here. Let's shift gears. So let's talk about your book, Jeff.
Okay.
How, again, you were a persuasion speaker. How has that, or where did that come from? Have you always had that so-called superpower of persuading? Were you able to persuade your parents to give you an extra allowance, or when you're out trick-or-treating, to persuade them to give you more candy?
Not really. It's not that I didn't want to. All along I was always wanting more things. And I come from a communications background. My master's is in English. I taught for a while. In 2014, I launched Targeted Persuasion, which is a public affairs and communications firm. So I come from a PR marketing advertising background. That's what I know. For me, one of the things that this adoption has actually clarified my own calling and like understanding like what I do really, really well in working with clients. Oftentimes firms can get messages out there, they can communicate, and that's fine. But I believe there's a whole different level that's needed as we move things out into the public, and that's not just to communicate, but is to persuade. So I can tell you about the brand all day long, but if I can't persuade you to buy from that brand, what good has it done? We specialize in public affairs at my firm, so we do build grassroots campaigns to help our clients, especially the legislative area where they're trying to pass bills or they're trying to stop bills from passing. Well, the only way that I can build successful campaigns is by persuading the general public to what it is that we're trying to accomplish. At the same time, I have to be able to help persuade the media to cover the stories for the clients as well. We have to work to persuade the legislators that are voting in favor of my clients as well. So for me, it's been this passion of, I don't want to just communicate. I really need to be able to move the needle. I want to make life better. To me, it's part of leadership. It's seeing a vision of how life could be better by bringing people along to a new decision.
So you bring up a interesting point about, especially as entrepreneurs and small business owners, that occasionally listen to this podcast, because I do love talking about business. I do love about building brands. I mean, especially with us, building. My ultimate goal is to build a media company. So, what advice can you give out there, Jeff, to get the right media? And what I mean by that is, again, like we talked about at the opening about influencers, and in my opinion, there's good influencers and there's bad influencers. And what I mean by that is there's so many, and I guess the best example I can think of are like the Kardashians. I don't consider them good influencers because what have they done? They're living off a name, somebody else's name. So, what can you say to others that are trying to build a business to get, as Gary Vaynerchuk would say, get eyeballs to the website, or to get a media presence, like you're talking about grassroots? How can somebody that's starting a grassroots campaign get positive attention out there, Jeff?
Great question. So let's frame it up through a story. Last legislative session, we were hired by the National Restaurant Association to run a campaign. The goal of the campaign was to move alcohol sales on Sunday from noon to 10 a.m. In the state of North Carolina, because of blue laws, you weren't able to buy. And that included restaurants, and it also included retail. So if you took your mom to a restaurant on Sunday to celebrate her birthday, and your mom wanted a mimosa at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, the server would tell you, no, you can't have that. The state says you cannot have that. So we got hired to come in and help with this campaign. And to answer your question, like what we did in this campaign is everything that I walked through in the book. I even tell the story that's in the book. We called the campaign Free the Mimosa. It was hashtag Free the Mimosa. See, and that's your response is exactly why. Like it was, people would laugh. They would also, so I didn't have time to do polling. This is a pop-up campaign. I didn't have time to do polling. I couldn't test messaging. I couldn't do anything like that whatsoever. I had to go on my gut. And here's what I knew. People don't like being told no. So when they've been to a restaurant and they've been said no, or they've gone to get in line to only say, put your beer back because it's not 12 o'clock, you can't drink beer yet. I knew I could connect with that. The way that we found success in this campaign was that we connected to a need, and especially an emotion that our target market already had. And we made a connection, and we showed them a path to change. We showed them a path where they could get what it was that they want. Oftentimes in sales, we're trying to get people to do what we want. We're trying to buy the product that we want them to have. That can easily turn into manipulation, as opposed to finding what it is, finding the pressure point, and then using emotion in this as well, using emotion to help drive the decision. And that was a big part of the success of the campaign, when they thought that the campaign, like the goal, even the first year, was just to get brand awareness, just get a conversation started about this. We probably can't pass it. Maybe next session we'll pass it. But we got it passed in the first session, a 6.5-week campaign. But we connected to something that the audience already wanted. I spoke to their emotion, and I gave them a path to get what they wanted.
Tell me about gut feeling, because, as a business owner and as a parent, you have these gut feelings of right and wrong, but there are times where you go with your gut and you want to say, oh, maybe I should go with my head versus my gut. Can you talk about using your gut on business and in parenting, Jeff?
Yeah, so I do like that gut feeling. I like like having that in me to give me direction. Now, I don't just fly off the seat of my pants with that. I will confirm with other people. I will say things like, hey, have you ever tried to buy a mimosa at brunch on Sunday morning and had a server tell you no? How did you feel when the server told you no? Oh, that made me mad. Or have you ever stood in line at the grocery store and got pissed off because you're trying to buy beer at 11:45 on Sunday? Like, yeah, then I have to go all the way back and take it back. And then I have to go sit in my car for 20 minutes and wait for the clock to get after 12 o'clock. It's stupid. It makes no sense, whatsoever. So it's kind of like this whole thing of like living by your gut, making decisions by your gut, but also verifying, as well. I do the same thing in making business decisions, and I've made some recent changes in different products and things that we're working on. Start with a gut for me, like what I think, but I also love to verify from people who have probably been further down the road or invested in the very same situation.
So what about from a parenting point of view? I mean, I'm sure as parents out there, we've had that that spidey sense that something's not right. So how can you relate your gut feeling to your kids, especially now, them being in the teenage years of, and as teenagers, they know more than you do, Dad.
Yeah, I think if I've had success, and I'm very careful since I only have one in college, I still have two at home. I'm very successful to call very like reluctant to call anything I've done successful yet. Like they're still alive, everybody's okay. So if that's the metric for success and that's the bar, then I say, we're okay. I think with my kids, when I've had those gut type moments like that, one of the things that I try to do, not that I'm always successful, one of the things that I try to do is to phrase things up in a question and and bringing in some type of emotion with that question as well, saying things like, hey, I'm afraid that this might be happening, or I'm fearful that this might be going on, or giving them a chance to, without me coming down on them, to talk, and if it's possible, hear from them what's happening first because like sometimes the stories we create in our head aren't true. And sometimes we create all these narratives that we think are there, but really aren't there. But framing it up in such a way that I can ask my kids questions, I can hear from them in a way that they're not defensive and they don't feel like I'm breathing down their necks, which it's easy for me as someone who's like very directed and know like where I want to go and what I want to do. It's very easy for me to do that. So I have to take a few steps back and breathe as well.
Yeah, I probably for the past 6 months, I've really found an interest in Stoicism. And
yes.
When you have teenagers, and best example, our 17-year-old, before she took her driving test, she had to have a daily log of all the hours when she was driving. And one day she'd lost it. And it was like the world was ending. And I'm like, let's talk about this. Let's just get it out. Let's play worst case scenario. And she's in tears. And I said, what is the worst case scenario? And she said, I'll have to make a new copy. Okay. So you have to make a new copy. And she didn't understand where I was going with it until a week later when I said, by the way, did you ever find your piece of paper? She goes, yeah. I said, well, where was it? She goes, at my friend's house. And I said, and everything worked out, right? She goes, yeah. But it's not just teenagers at times. We do that too. Prime example was I was in Canada a few weeks ago and I lost my wallet. Well, worst case scenario is I lost my driver's license. However, I didn't lose my passport, so I was able to come back to the States. But now the worst case scenario is now I have to go to the DMV and go through all that. And I think as parents, when we have our own worst case scenario and we project that, and then we need to take that step back to go, it really wasn't that bad. And so again, as parents, we need to understand that when we start doing that, our kids are going to start doing that. Agreed?
Yeah, and so it sounds like we're in a very similar place in life right now. I'm looking to a lot of the Stoic writers as well for directions and things of that nature. And you're right. It's to me, this like isn't just about my kids. Like this is me as well. Like I can play these things out in my head. I can create, just like we were just talking, all these narratives. I can create all these stories based on the past and just go down this negative path of where things would go. But if I can, then just look at it and say, okay, like you said, what's the worst case? Can you live with that? Of course I can live with that. Okay, so if the wallet's lost, it's lost. I'll buy a new one. Credit cards can be replaced. Why am I going to let that steal my joy at this moment and create frustration that I may have to live with for hours that I'll never get back and take all that from me? I will say that it's very interesting to see like Nina coming, the daughter that I adopted versus me. I can go down those negative stories and I can allow those things to create in my head. She is like almost naturally like water rolling off a duck's back. Like we talk about it, something's come up, and she's like, "Yeah, well, that kind of sucks. But here's this, and this," and then it's like it's over for her, and she just somehow instinctively just moves on to the positive and accepts the worst. Okay, no big deal. One of the beauties, we have the same thing here. On a side note for driver's ed, and she's going through that now. They have an app that they use. So she just logs, when she gets ready to drive, she logs into the app. It automatically records, it stops, it turns off. It knows like her daylight hours versus her nighttime hours. It knows all that and logs all of that for her. She has a natural disposition to be able to just accept the worst and figure out, okay, then let's go. Let's take the next step.
Do you think inside of her that it's a culture thing of, I mean, her DNA is still Haitian. So do you think that, as you were saying, Jeff, of her being able to let the water roll off her back, do you think that's innate, or do you think it's her environment?
I don't know. I don't feel like I have enough training to know that. But what I can say is this. It is very consistent with what I saw when I was in Haiti. I mean, to have people that at times could eat lunch and have no idea where their dinner was going to come from, and to like be okay for the afternoon, or like even like things that I would fret over, like transportation, like getting from point A to point B, like they just didn't care. It was crazy. Most people had these pickup trucks and they would turn the back of them into like these little seats and stuff. We would start going into the city with just two of us. And by the time we got to the city, the whole truck was full of people. We just pull up like to a stop sign. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where you going?" They're like, "Hey, get in." And like, they just didn't care about that. Like, they weren't fazed by those things. They were just so happy with life. Again, I don't have the skills to understand, but I can tell you that there is this major correlation here between like what Haitians were like, my experience of what Haitians were like, and what she is like. She's a true Haitian in that, a true Haitian.
This might sound like a dumb question, but it just popped in my head, and I'm really good at asking really dumb questions throughout my life. What American things does she really love? Is it like going to McDonald's? Is it what is there something that you find amazing? Not necessarily comparing your kids, but something you would expect from your son or daughter versus Nina.
Technology is huge to her. She is very focused on technology, loves it, which is directing her career path as well. So I think that's part of what she loves. She does lots of the food here as well. I mean, she enjoys going to restaurants and trying new things. In fact, in the evenings, like if I want to make her happy, I just try fixing a new dinner, a new dish, or something like that. And she just loves, she loves that, which Haitians have a bit more set. Oftentimes foods that they will eat, and so she's very exploratory with all that. So I think she also loves the opportunity that's in front of her. A lot of Haitians do not sense this big opportunity of what's out there, everything that's out there to her. And I feel fortunate that we live in the Raleigh area. There's so many golden opportunities, especially being the technology-driven area, entrepreneurship area, that all these things are out there. And she really, we've had lots of discussions about like, even like for me as a kid growing up in a rural community, I didn't have these opportunities in front of me. So I think that she really does value and appreciates and loves like all these things are in front of her.
What when you have all three kids together, what's a common bond between those three? Is it, and I ask this because I'm an only child, so I was my own best friend. Um, what is it, the three of them, when they get together, there's something that they just enjoy doing?
Picking fights with their brother. Could we start with that one?
There you go.
My son is like this total comedian, and he is hilarious all the time, and he loves to pick and play tricks on them, and I have all these little picking fights with them. So if there's anything that I can count on at some point in the evening, there's going to be something that's going to come up, and never anything like totally like really bad, but just
Right.
that's how they interact.
So let's dive back into the book. What in the title of the book again?
The book is called Unleashing Your Superpower: Why Persuasive Communication is the Only Force You'll Ever Need. And in the book, I made the big, bold statement that we all live or die based upon our ability to persuade. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO trying to move a company forward, if you're an entrepreneur trying to get your clients, customers, pitching for investment, trying to attract talent, if you're in sales, if you're a middle manager, people on top of you, people below you, if you answer the phone, if you're a parent, if you don't want to live alone for the rest of your life, that we all live or die based upon our ability to persuade others.
Why is persuasion so key?
I think persuasion is the superpower. As in fact, I start off talking about superpowers and Batman and Superman, and talk about my quest as a kid, wondering what superpower I would have. I think that the ability to show leadership, to see a future that's different, and to bring people along in that journey is the one thing that can set our lives apart, can set us in the direction. So, and then I proved that out in the book. Like we taught through in the book, I taught through like messaging, how you craft messaging, how you craft sticky messaging, how you put your focus on others, what this looks like to help other people. I talk about ways to connect with our audience as well, which is parents is extremely important as well. I walk through steps on connection. I taught through things like how you position your message, how you craft a call to action. And then a big part of this that's extremely important to parents as well. In fact, the final chapter in my book came because my editor and publisher came back to me and said, Jeff, you've talked a lot about trust throughout the different chapters of this book, but you've never really hit this head on. Is trust important to persuasion? It's important. Like it's everything in persuasion. In fact, without trust, take every chapter in this book and put it through a shredder, because it's no value whatsoever. Trust is the foundation for persuasion. And again, it doesn't matter if you're the parent, if you're the CEO, you've got to have that trust to persuade.
Two questions come to mind. Number one, what defines sticky messaging?
Yeah, so with sticky messaging, what we're looking for is messaging that resonates with people and stays with them. You've probably gotten out of your car before to walk to a meeting and started walking across the pavement and to feel something on your shoe that over time you kind of look down and you realize, hey, this is gum that's on my shoe. What happens? Every step is still there, right? It remains with us. Sticky messaging. Here's why this is important. We can have a meeting, we have an email, we have a phone call. What we want is after that experience, we want the things that we've said to our audience to stick with them, to resonate. So for an hour later, they're still thinking about it. A week later, they're still thinking about it. 2 weeks later. And their brands have done great jobs with that. Things like Got Milk. Like we know that messaging, it sticks with us. Or, like Vegas, like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Like those type things that resonate and that they stay with us. And I think as parents, it's important too for our messaging to stay with our kids as well. So how do we say it, develop in such a way that it sticks with our people, with our parent, with our audience, our kids, whatever that happens to look like?
And if I'm misquoting it, I'm gonna shoot myself. I think it was Dr. Norman Vincent Peale talked about, or maybe it was Dale Carnegie, know, like, and trust.
Yes.
One of those two. Because you're talking about the trust factor, and one of the things when I think of persuasion and trust is the opposite, and that is the world of sales. Because to me, when it comes to selling, so you could be selling yourself. So in your situation, Jeff, talking to potential clients. So you have to sell yourself. You have to sell your service, sell your message. With parents, we have to sell our own message to help our kids. walk the audience through how to create the word sales and persuasion as a positive. Does that make sense?
It sure does. So for me, it's not even about sales, and I do have responsibility to get contracts signed. Whether it's for my firm or for speaking contracts. I don't at all view any of the work that I do as sales whatsoever, because sales sounds horrible to me. It brings up ideas of, especially around manipulation and things of that nature. But when I'm talking with a meeting planner, for example, and they have a gig coming up, and I'll ask them, hey, what are the pressure points with this organization? Like, what do they need fixed? What are the problems? What are the obstacles that this group are facing? What are they looking for? And when I hear the problems that are there, if my story and my message align, and I can bring a solution to the table, I can come back and say, okay, you've articulated this is the problem. Let me tell you about the solution that my speech will bring to it. This problem, here's this solution. This problem, here's this solution. And what ends up happening is I'm not there to sell and make them buy me or make them write me a check. I'm trying to just say, look, all right, this is the problem. I can fix that. My speech can bring a solution to your organization. Here's what I will do with it. At that point, it's not sales any longer. I'm fixing a problem. I'm providing a solution. They are thrilled to write me a check because they believe that as I've stepped on stage, or if there's a client project, that we're going to fix something that they want changed.
What one big takeaway between your story of Nina, between trying to show the power of persuasion? What one takeaway, and there goes Duke, I need to persuade Duke not to bark when I'm doing a podcast. What one takeaway would you want to share with the audience?
One of the biggest mind shifts, like after we understand manipulation versus persuasion, and we understand like what persuasion is, and it fires us up to understand that we're creating a better future for people. We're creating better outcomes for people. I think that part of it, the next major thing I would leave people that would shift their mind is if they truly do take their mindset away from, to use sales, for example, that you just mentioned, of what we're trying to force people to do or trying to make someone to do. When we really care about what it is that they're facing, the things that the pressure points that they have, the pains that they have, when we take it off of ourselves and put it on them, and we reframe this away from, I need to sign this contract to get get this money into my bank account, and we put our mindset toward them and what it is that they're facing, and we know that we can bring a solution to the table for them. If we're a parent, if we're in business, if we're an entrepreneur, what our mind, just that little change away from I got to have a check to I have solutions. Now I need to find the right audience for what it is. I've got solutions. You've got pressure points. I don't know about you, but like if I have something in my business, if I need help and a product, an app can bring a solution to it, if it can create more efficiency, whatever I need, I'm happy to write a check. No big deal, because it's bringing a solution to the table. But focusing on the other person, it'll change them, and it will change us as well.
Jeff Tippett, how can the listeners get a hold of you?
They're welcome to check out my website at jefftippett.com, which is JEFFTIPPETT. I got Google ads on all kind of misspellings of my name, so if they get anywhere close, most likely an ad will pop up and they'll be able to find me. But they can subscribe to my newsletter. They can see some of my writing. They can find out the book as it's coming out next month. Everything is there on my site and all my social media as well.
It's funny you say that about Google AdWords. I know my son used to play hockey with another kid, and his dad would buy websites that had a little bit of a misspelling. That's how he was making money was off of those goofy.
I've landed on some of those.
Yeah. I mean, that's way beyond my pay grade how he did it. But when you said that, I was just cracking up and thinking of that. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for telling us your story about your family and especially about Nina. And it's great to hear a happy, and I know it's not a happy ending yet, but the happiness that you were able to do for Nina and also your own family of bringing her into their lives as well. And it sounds like all three kids just get along so well, and that's a great thing to hear.
I think life is great. Thanks for the opportunity to share today and talk. I love talking about persuasion, and and helping the light bulbs go off so they can see how life could be different for themselves. So thanks for the opportunity to share. I appreciate it.
Oh, Jeff, anytime. As I always say to all my podcast guests, you always have an open invite. So, and again, I'm going to go back in saying I'm calling BS on you again. Podcast influencer. I'm lucky enough to have people such as yourself come on the show and bring so much value, and you did, Jeff. So thank you. I'm honored that you took your time to come on this wacky podcast that I love doing.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family. Sorry, no fried beans.
No fried beans.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family. Sorry, no fried beans or refunds, not even the sponsors.